I was sitting in my corner office, the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows that made the whole city look like it was laid out just for me, when my phone buzzed for the third time in a row. I tried to ignore it. I really did. I even smoothed down the front of my pale rose silk blouse, pretending the soft fabric could steady the sudden spike in my heartbeat. But it kept buzzing. And buzzing. Finally, I glanced at the screen. A message from my cousin Mia. Emily, don't freak out. But your brother just got engaged. And he wants you there. For a second, I actually laughed, a short, sharp breath I didn't mean to let out.
Jacob.
Engaged. And wanting me at the celebration? The same brother who wrecked my wedding day so completely my therapist still flinches when I talk about it? I leaned back in my chair, the city lights below blurring into soft gold streaks. I could smell the hint of vanilla from my half-finished latte, now cold beside my laptop. My nails tapped lightly against the cup, catching on a tiny chip in the polish I hadn't had time to fix, a detail that somehow made the moment feel even more real, more irritatingly human. Of all the messages that could have arrived today, a client request, a project update, even a spam email, it had to be this. Jacob. My brother. The man who stood by my side in childhood but destroyed my world in adulthood. I swallowed hard, the familiar ache rising, sharp but controlled. I wasn't that same girl anymore. Still this message? This request? It cracked open a door I'd spent years sealing shut. And there was only one way this story could ever end. He wrecked my wedding, and he had no idea what that turned me into. I wasn't always this composed. There was a time when even hearing Jacob's name made my stomach twist, back when I was 26 and still believed family loyalty could survive anything. Back when I was planning a wedding I thought would be the happiest day of my life. I remember the morning of my wedding like it's stitched into my skin. My dress hung by the window of the bridal suite. Ivory satin, lace sleeves, the kind of gown little girls imagine but rarely grow up to wear. My hands trembled as I adjusted my earrings, trying to steady my breathing. I looked younger then, softer, more hopeful. Mia was helping me with my veil when the shouting started outside the door. A man's voice, loud, angry, too familiar. Jacob. My heart dropped. Please tell me he's not starting again. I whispered. Mia's face told me everything. I opened the door to find chaos. Jacob red-faced, drunk, yelling at Mark, my fiancé, accusing him of marrying me for money I didn't even have. Guests were staring. My mother was crying. Mark was trying to calm my brother down, hands raised in surrender, but Jacob shoved him hard enough that he stumbled against the wall. I felt my throat close. Jacob, stop. He turned toward me, eyes glassy, breath sharp with whiskey. You're making a mistake, Em. He's not good enough for you. None of this is real. His words sliced through the air. People filmed, whispered, judgy eyes everywhere. It felt like drowning in slow motion. And then, the worst moment, Jacob threw the ring box. My ring. It bounced across the floor like a cheap toy instead of the symbol of the life I was about to build. I couldn't breathe. Mascara burned down my cheeks. Somewhere in the back of my mind, something cracked. Something small and hopeful that had still believed Jacob loved me enough to let me be happy. We canceled the ceremony. Guests left. My bridal gown felt like a costume of a life that evaporated in front of everyone. That night, I sat alone in my tiny apartment, wrapped in a blanket, eyes swollen. My grandmother's old locket, the one she'd given me just weeks before, sat in my palm. Life will break you, she'd said as she fastened it around my neck. But you get to decide what you do with the pieces. I held onto that locket like a lifeline. And by sunrise, I made a choice. I packed a suitcase, blocked Jacob's number, and walked out of the life that had shattered in front of me. I wasn't running. I was rebuilding on my own terms. Walking away from everything familiar was terrifying, but the kind of terrifying that felt necessary, like breathing after being underwater too long. I moved to Seattle with 2 suitcases, one worn-out laptop, and my grandmother's locket tucked safely against my skin. No friends. No plan. Just a quiet, stubborn promise to myself. I will not let my wedding be the final chapter of my story. The first months were rough. I rented a tiny studio apartment above a noisy deli, and when I say tiny, I mean the kind where your bed practically touches your kitchen counter. The kind where I could hear every argument, every frying pan hitting the stove downstairs. But it was mine. My space. My reset button. I found a job as an assistant at a small marketing agency, the kind of place where the carpet was older than the interns and the coffee machine wheezed like it needed medical attention. But the woman running the agency, Amanda Carter, was sharp, bold, and everything I secretly wanted to become. She wore blazers like armor and red lipstick like a declaration. And she believed in me long before I believed in myself. "Emily," she said on my second week, pausing by my desk, "you see things people miss.
Don't hide that."
Her confidence felt foreign, almost intrusive, but also like sunlight hitting a room that had been dark too long. The work was intense. I spent late nights learning design software, rewriting brand pitches, watching tutorials until my eyes ached. Some nights, I cried from exhaustion. Some nights, I doubted every breath I took. I'd stare at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, hair in a messy bun, eyeliner smudged, shoulders tense, and whisper, "You're doing this. Keep going." Slowly, things shifted. My first win was small. A local bakery loved a social media campaign I designed. The second win was bigger. A startup asked specifically for me to lead their branding. For the first time in years, I felt something warm, steady, and unbelievably dangerous bloom inside me. Pride. Amanda noticed. One afternoon, she called me into her office, where the walls were covered in inspiration boards and framed client milestones. "You're not an assistant anymore," she said simply. "You're a strategist. And if you're ready, I want you to lead a team." My breath hitched. I nodded. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a girl rebuilding from ashes. I felt like a woman forging something entirely new. Of course, my family didn't know any of this. I kept my updates vague, surface level. "I'm fine. Work is good. Nothing big." I didn't post pictures of my new office or the awards we started winning. I kept my LinkedIn quiet, my social media boring, a digital fog around a life that was blooming beautifully.
Why?
Because I didn't want Jacob or anyone thinking I was proving something to them. I was proving something to myself. For years later, I co-owned the agency with Amanda. We'd expanded into a sleek downtown space with glass walls, soft lighting, and a view of the water that made every late night feel worth it. I wore tailored suits, carried a designer laptop bag, and signed contracts worth more than what I used to make in a year. But under all the success, I stayed quiet about home, quiet about Jacob, quiet about the pain that had pushed me here. Because I knew, someday, life would circle back. Someday, my past would knock on my door again. I just didn't expect that day to come in the form of his engagement announcement. The day they showed up, Seattle was wrapped in its usual soft gray drizzle, the kind that painted the windows and made the whole city feel cinematic. I was finishing a meeting with a tech client when my assistant poked her head in. "Emily, your family is here. They said it's important." My pulse stuttered.
Family.
I hadn't seen that word outside of holiday texts in years. I straightened my blazer, smoothed an invisible wrinkle from my slacks, and touched the locket at my collarbone. A grounding reminder. You rebuilt yourself. Don't forget that. When I stepped into the lobby, 3 familiar figures stood out against the polished marble floor and curated modern art. My mother, Mia, and Jacob. He looked different. Older, a little heavier in the face, wearing a stiff suit that didn't quite fit. But the moment our eyes met, I felt the ghost of every wound he'd ever carved into me. He said quietly, as if the nickname still belonged to him. "We need to talk." I didn't smile. "Follow me." I led them through the glass corridor toward the executive wing, the one only partners had access to. Their footsteps echoed behind me, hesitant, confused. The click of my heels sounded like a metronome controlling the whole room. When we reached my office, I opened the door and stepped aside. They froze. The space was a blend of elegance and power. Soft cream walls, a walnut desk, gold-accented shelves lined with awards, framed magazine features, and the city skylines stretching endlessly behind the glass. A vase of pale pink roses, my quiet indulgence, sat near my computer, their scent warm and calming. My mother pressed a hand to her mouth. Mia blinked rapidly, whispering, "Oh my God." And Jacob, he just stared, confusion knitting his brows. "This is your office?" he asked. I took my seat behind the desk, and folded my hands.
Yes.
"I'm co-owner of Carter and Hayes." His jaw dropped slightly. "But I thought you were working at a small agency. You never said." "That was a long time ago," I said smoothly. "Things changed." My mother stepped forward, voice trembling. "Emily, we had no idea." "No," I said softly, "you didn't." The silence stretched, heavy and awkward. Finally, Jacob cleared his throat. "I came because I'm getting married." He said it like a question. "And I want you there." "Why?" My voice was even but firm. "You made it very clear years ago that my happiness wasn't something you cared about." He flinched. "I was drunk. I was stupid. I thought I was protecting you. You humiliated me, Jacob. On the most important day of my life." My eyes locked on his. "You took something from me I can never get back." He looked away, jaw tightening with guilt.
I know.
"I've replayed that day 1,000 times. I'm sorry." This time, the apology landed differently, not because it erased anything, but because he finally said it without excuses. I let the moment breathe before I reached into a drawer and pulled out a leather portfolio. I slid it across the desk. "What's this?" he asked. "Reality," I said. "The woman you're looking at is not the sister you broke. I built this agency. I own 40% of a multi-million-dollar operation. I work with clients across the country. I'm not the fragile girl standing in a ruined wedding dress anymore." His eyes widened, flicking through the documents, client lists, press features, financial summaries.
Proof.
"Undeniable proof. You did all this alone?" I nodded.
Yes.
"Because I had to." My mother's voice cracked. "Sweetheart, we're proud of you."
I didn't respond to that, not yet.
Pride meant nothing without accountability. Jacob set the portfolio down with a shaky exhale. I don't know what to say." "Say nothing," I replied. "Just listen." I stood, walking toward the window. The city stretched out in shimmering gray and gold, a testament to everything I fought for, everything I earned. "When you ruined my wedding," I said quietly, "you didn't just break a day, you broke trust. You broke our relationship. And now you're here, because you want something from me." He swallowed hard. "I want my sister back." I turned to face him fully, strong, steady, unmistakably changed. "That depends," I said. "Because before I set foot anywhere near your engagement." I paused, letting my gaze sweep over all three of them. "There are things you'll have to prove." Jacob's face tightened, the way it used to when we were kids, and he knew he was in real trouble. Not the playful kind, but the kind where consequences finally caught up. My mother clasped her hands together. Mia shifted uncomfortably, and for a moment, the room was still enough to hear the hum of the air vents overhead. I walked back to my desk, my heels tapping softly against the floor, and rested my hands on the edge. "You don't get to ask for a sister," I said gently, "until you show me you're ready to be a brother." Jacob swallowed. "What do you want me to do?" "A few things," I said, starting with honesty. His brows knitted. "Honesty?" "Yes." I met his eyes, unblinking. "Tell your fiancé what you did. Everything. The drinking. The lies you told about Mark. How you humiliated me in front of 200 people. She deserves to know who she's marrying." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. That could ruin everything." My voice softened, but it didn't bend. Truth tends to do that when it's been buried too long. My mother stepped forward. "Emily, sweetheart, maybe that's too much." I held up a hand.
No.
"This isn't punishment. It's accountability. If Jacob wants a healthy marriage, he can't start it with secrecy." I shifted my gaze to him again. "And if he wants me in his life, he can't keep pretending that day never happened." He nodded slowly, absorbing it. Second, I continued therapy. Real therapy. Not 2 sessions and quitting when it gets uncomfortable. You have anger issues, Jacob. And drinking issues. I understand you were hurting back then, but you hurt me deeply. You need to fix the parts of yourself that created that moment. He rubbed the back of his neck. Okay, I can do that. Good, I said, because I won't be around someone who can explode my life on a whim. I turned my attention to my mother, whose eyes were glossy with emotions she couldn't quite name. You too, I said softly. No more pretending nothing happened. No more brushing things under the rug, because family is complicated. If I'm going to be part of this family again, we address things openly. She nodded, voice trembling. I can do that. And third, I said, letting my gaze sweep across all of them, respect my boundaries. If I come to this engagement, it won't be as an afterthought or a box checked for appearances. It will be because you genuinely want me there. Not the version of me who stayed quiet, but the woman I've become. Jacob's voice was rough, but sincere. We do want you. I want you. And I'll do what you're asking. All of it. Good, I said softly. Because love without growth is just nostalgia. And I'm not living in the past anymore. A quiet strength settled inside me. Not revenge, not anger, just clarity. These conditions weren't about control. They were about healing, about rewriting a relationship that had broken in the most public, painful way. If they wanted me back in their lives, they'd have to step into the light with me, not drag me back into the shadows I fought so hard to leave. Prove it, I said, my voice steady as stone. Do that, and maybe I'll stand at your engagement. Jacob didn't argue. He simply nodded, eyes lowered, accepting the terms like a man finally ready to rebuild what he destroyed. Jacob didn't contact me for a week after that meeting. Not a text, not a call, nothing. At first, I thought it was avoidance, the thing he'd always done best. But then slowly updates came through Mia. He told his fiancée. He told her everything. According to Mia, there were tears, long conversations, even a temporary pause in wedding planning. But his fiancée, Lily, wasn't fragile. She didn't run. Instead, she told him, if you want a future with me, you have to confront your past with her. Then Jacob found a therapist. Not a cheap, easy one, but someone who specialized in family trauma and addiction cycles. He started attending twice a week. And for the first time in years, he stayed consistent. My mother took steps too. She enrolled in a family communication workshop, something I didn't expect her to do in a million years. She sent me a message one night that read, I want to learn how to support you better. I'm sorry I didn't before. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fix. But it was movement, the kind people make when they finally understand the cost of losing you. 2 weeks before Jacob's engagement party, a small package arrived at my office. No return name, just a soft cream box wrapped with a thin silver ribbon. Inside was my grandmother's locket, polished, repaired, shining like new. I hadn't realized Jacob had taken it the night everything fell apart years ago, trying to hold on to me when I'd walked out. A note was tucked beside it in his handwriting. I broke a lot more than your wedding that day. I'm trying to fix what I can. Whether you come or not, thank you for not giving up on me entirely. My breath caught. For the first time, there was no anger in my chest, just a quiet ache and a soft, unexpected warmth. The night of the engagement party, I stood in front of my mirror, wearing a simple navy dress and the locket around my neck. My reflection didn't look like the girl who cried in a ruined wedding gown. She looked steady, whole, unapologetically herself. When I arrived, Jacob spotted me first. His eyes softened, shoulders dropping in visible relief. Emily, he said, voice thick. You came. I smiled, small, genuine. Yeah, I did. And the moment felt like a chapter closing, not with vengeance, not with triumph, but with a kind of peace I'd never expected to find. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind, warm as a hand on my heart. Life will break you, but you decide what you do with the pieces. I lifted my chin, breathed in, and let the final truth settle inside me. I rebuilt myself, and that was the real victory all along. Top of form,